24-year-old Johnny stared at his phone screen in complete disbelief, his hands trembling as he scrolled through the Facebook post again. There it was, clear as daylight. His beloved 2017 Ford Mustang GT, the deep blue metallic paint gleaming under someone else's garage lights. Derek Thompson had posted photos celebrating his new ride, completely unaware that the car belonged to someone studying engineering 3,000 miles away in Munich, Germany. Johnny's heart pounded as he immediately video called his parents, Linda and Robert, back home in Ohio. His mother's casual response shattered his world. "Oh, honey, we sold it to help Marcus with his gambling debts. You weren't using it anyway, right?" The Mustang wasn't just transportation. Every curve, every chrome detail, every horsepower represented 3 grueling years of weekend construction jobs, summer landscaping work, and birthday money, carefully saved since he turned 16. Johnny had researched every option, compared every dealer price, and finally bought his dream car with cash, earned through sweat and determination. Now, some stranger named Derek owned the symbol of his teenage dedication and sacrifice. The betrayal burned deeper than any physical pain Johnny had ever experienced. I never imagined coming back from my exchange program would start like this. After 10 months of intensive engineering coursework at Munich Technical University, I was supposed to return home triumphant degree in hand, ready to launch my career in renewable energy. Instead, I found myself staring at an empty garage, where my Mustang should have been waiting, feeling like everything I thought I knew about my family had been a carefully constructed lie. My parents sat across from me at the kitchen table, where we used to plan family vacations and celebrate my academic achievements. The same wooden surface where I had signed my first car insurance papers now felt like foreign territory. Linda fidgeted with her coffee mug, avoiding eye contact, while Robert cleared his throat repeatedly, searching for words that might justify the unjustifiable. Marcus owed some very dangerous people $12,000. Robert began, his voice carrying the weight of fear and regret. "He came to us 3 weeks ago, absolutely terrified. These weren't regular gambling buddies, Johnny. These were serious criminals who had already threatened to break his legs if he didn't pay up immediately." Linda jumped in her voice, rising with defensive urgency. "We tried calling you, but the time difference made it so complicated, and Marcus said they had given him 48 hours to come up with the money or face severe consequences. We didn't know what else to do." I pulled out my phone and showed them my call log, which clearly displayed several missed calls from unknown German numbers that had tried reaching me during the crisis period. "You have my Munich University number, my dormitory landline, my email address, and my emergency contact information. The international calling cards you bought for my birthday work perfectly fine. You could have reached me within hours, not days." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert finally admitted what I already suspected: they had made no real effort to contact me before making this life-altering decision. They had simply chosen the path of least resistance, sacrificing my property to solve Marcus's problem, without considering the legal, emotional, or financial consequences for me. The buyer, Derek Thompson, seems like a decent guy. Linda offered weakly, as if the character of the person who unknowingly purchased stolen property somehow lessened the crime. He paid $14,000 cash, which was enough to cover Marcus's debt, with some left over for his fresh start. Fresh start. The phrase made my stomach turn. Marcus had been getting fresh starts from our family for over a decade, each one funded by someone else's sacrifice, each one followed by another crisis that required immediate intervention. This time, his fresh start had cost me 3 years of hard work and my most prized possession. I demanded to see the paperwork, though I already suspected what I would find. Robert reluctantly retrieved a manila folder from his desk drawer, his hands shaking as he handed me the documents. The title transfer bore my signature perfectly forged along with a bill of sale dated 3 weeks earlier. We had to sign for you because time was so critical. Robert explained, his voice barely above a whisper. Marcus was getting threatening phone calls every hour. We couldn't wait for international mail or complicated legal procedures. We thought you would understand once you learned about the circumstances. Understanding was the last thing I felt as I examined my forged signature. The handwriting was close enough to fool a casual observer, but lacked the subtle characteristics that made my signature unique. Someone had practiced this forgery, planned it, prepared for this exact moment, when I would be thousands of miles away and unable to intervene. The betrayal extended beyond the simple theft of my car. My parents had violated my trust, committed felony fraud, and made a major financial decision affecting my life without even attempting genuine consultation. They had chosen to enable Marcus's destructive behavior, rather than face the difficult conversation about accountability and consequences that might have actually helped him in the long term. As I sat in that kitchen surrounded by family photos that now seemed like evidence of a relationship I had fundamentally misunderstood, I realized that my real education was just beginning. Everything I thought I knew about family loyalty, trust, and communication had been challenged by this single act of betrayal disguised as emergency assistance. The next morning, I contacted Patricia Sullivan, our family's attorney, who had handled routine legal matters for over 15 years. Her office occupied the third floor of a historic brick building downtown, and I had always associated visiting her with positive events, like scholarship paperwork and college planning documents. This time, the familiar environment felt ominous as I explained the situation involving my stolen vehicle. Patricia listened intently, taking detailed notes while I described the forged signature and unauthorized sale. Her expression grew increasingly serious as she pulled out a thick reference book and began flipping through sections on vehicle title fraud and family theft statutes. Johnny, what your parents did constitutes felony fraud under Ohio law. She explained, her professional demeanor unable to mask her obvious concern. Forging someone's signature on a vehicle title is punishable by up to 18 months in state prison, plus substantial fines and restitution requirements. The gravity of her words hit me like a physical blow. I had come seeking legal advice about recovering my property, not learning that my parents had committed crimes serious enough to result in imprisonment. The situation had escalated far beyond family disagreement into the realm of criminal justice. Patricia hesitated before continuing, then reached into her filing cabinet and withdrew a folder bearing my family's name. The thickness of the file surprised me, as I expected it to contain only routine documents from previous legal consultations. I need to show you something that might affect your decision about how to proceed, she said carefully. This isn't the first time your parents have engaged in fraudulent financial activity involving your personal information. My stomach dropped as she spread out documentation, revealing a pattern of deception spanning several years. 2 years earlier, while I was finishing my bachelor's degree, Linda and Robert had refinanced their mortgage without informing me, despite my name appearing on the property deed as a co-owner since my 18th birthday. They had used my excellent credit score to secure a lower interest rate, saving themselves hundreds of dollars monthly, while exposing me to significant financial liability. The documents revealed additional unauthorized activities that had occurred during my focused academic years. Last year, they had opened a credit card account using my Social Security number to pay for Marcus's previous gambling debts. The account showed a current balance of $9,000, with minimum payments being made to avoid default, but no progress toward actually eliminating the debt. Your credit report currently shows 4 accounts that you never opened and total debt of $23,000. Patricia explained, handing me a printed credit summary. This has been affecting your credit score for months, though you obviously had no knowledge of these accounts while studying abroad. I stared at the paperwork, feeling like I was reading about a stranger's financial life. My carefully maintained credit history built through responsible student loan management and part-time job income, had been secretly destroyed by people I trusted completely. The betrayal multiplied exponentially as I realized this wasn't an isolated incident of poor judgment under pressure, but rather an established pattern of treating my financial identity as their personal emergency fund. Patricia walked me through the legal options available, each carrying significant emotional and financial consequences for my family. Criminal prosecution would likely result in felony convictions, for both parents potentially destroying Robert's career as a high school mathematics teacher and Linda's position as a hospital administrator. Civil litigation could recover monetary damages, but would create permanent family divisions and public humiliation. You also need to understand the position of Derek Thompson, the current possessor of your vehicle. Patricia continued. He purchased the car in good faith, believing the sellers had legitimate authority to complete the transaction. Ohio law provides some protection for innocent purchasers, which could complicate efforts to recover your property. The legal complexity overwhelmed me as I considered the various parties affected by Marcus's crisis and my parents' response. Derek had invested his hard-earned money in what he believed was a legitimate purchase. My parents had committed fraud while trying to help family. Marcus had created the entire situation through irresponsible gambling and manipulation. Meanwhile, I had become the victim of multiple crimes, despite being thousands of miles away, and completely uninvolved in the circumstances leading to this disaster. Patricia recommended immediately freezing my credit to prevent further unauthorized activity, filing police reports for the documented fraud, and sending formal demand letters to my parents requiring complete disclosure of all financial activities involving my personal information. She also suggested hiring a private investigator to verify Marcus's claims about owing money to dangerous criminals, as these allegations formed the justification for my parents' emergency actions. Based on my experience with family financial fraud cases, there are often additional deceptions that victims don't discover until they conduct thorough investigations. Patricia warned. You may find that the gambling debt story itself contains significant fabrications designed to manipulate your parents' emotions and override their better judgment. As I left Patricia's office with a stack of legal documents and a clear action plan, I felt the weight of adult responsibility settling on my shoulders in ways that studying abroad had never prepared me for. My education in engineering had taught me to analyze problems systematically and design solutions based on evidence and logic. Now, I needed to apply those same principles to unraveling a web of family deception that threatened both my financial future and my fundamental understanding of the people I loved most. The afternoon sun felt different as I walked to my car, a borrowed sedan that reminded me constantly of what I had lost. Every automotive advertisement, every Mustang I passed on the street, every conversation about vehicles brought fresh waves of anger and sadness that threatened to overwhelm my determination to handle this situation responsibly and legally. That evening, I called my parents to inform them about my meeting with Patricia and the legal implications of their actions. The conversation that followed would prove to be even more shocking than anything I had discovered so far. I arranged to meet my parents for dinner at Romano's, a quiet Italian restaurant where our family had celebrated my high school graduation and college acceptance. The familiar red checkered tablecloths and warm lighting that once represented happy memories now provided an uncomfortable backdrop for the most difficult conversation of my life. Linda and Robert arrived 15 minutes late, their faces showing the strain of sleepless nights and growing anxiety about the legal situation. They ordered coffee instead of their usual wine, suggesting they understood the seriousness of our discussion and wanted clear heads for whatever revelations might emerge. I placed the legal documents Patricia had given me on the table between us, including the credit reports, unauthorized account statements, and criminal statute information. The evidence spread across the surface like pieces of a puzzle that revealed a picture none of us wanted to acknowledge. Before we discuss solutions, I need complete honesty about everything that has happened. I began keeping my voice steady, despite the emotional turmoil churning inside me. Patricia has shown me documentation of financial fraud, extending back several years, and I need to understand the full scope of what you've done with my personal information. Robert picked up the credit report with shaking hands, his face growing pale as he read the details of accounts he had hoped I would never discover. Linda stared at her coffee cup, unable to meet my eyes, as the weight of their deceptions became impossible to ignore. The conversation was interrupted by Marcus's unexpected arrival. Linda had apparently texted him about our meeting, summoning him to provide support for their position. He slid into the booth beside my mother, with the confident swagger of someone who believed himself to be the victim rather than the catalyst of our family's crisis. "I heard you're planning to cause legal trouble over a simple family favor." Marcus said, his tone carrying accusation rather than gratitude. "That's pretty selfish considering everything the family has done to support your fancy education and European adventures." His words ignited anger I had been trying to control throughout this ordeal. Marcus had the audacity to frame my parents' criminal activity as a favor while simultaneously attacking my academic achievements as somehow undeserving of protection or consideration. "The family has supported me by committing fraud, identity theft, and vehicle theft." I responded, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "The family has supported me by destroying my credit, forging my signature, and selling my property without permission." Marcus leaned forward aggressively, clearly expecting his usual intimidation tactics to work. "Your parents were trying to save my life. The people I owed money to had already threatened violence. They needed immediate cash. And your car was just sitting in the garage, collecting dust while you were living it up in Germany." Linda finally spoke, her voice cracking with emotion. "We were terrified for Marcus's safety, Johnny. He showed us threatening text messages from these dangerous people. They knew where he lived, where he worked, even details about our family. We felt like we had no choice but to help him immediately." I pulled out my phone and showed them the international calling records, the email chains with my professors, and the detailed contact information I had provided before leaving for Germany. "You had choices. You chose not to contact me. You chose to commit fraud. You chose to enable Marcus's gambling addiction instead of helping him face the consequences of his choices." Robert finally found his voice, though it sounded hollow and defeated. "We thought you would understand family loyalty. We thought you would want us to help Marcus in a life-threatening situation, even if it meant sacrificing your car temporarily." The word "temporarily" revealed another layer of their self-deception. They had convinced themselves that selling my car was somehow a loan arrangement that could be reversed once Marcus's crisis passed. They had failed to consider that Derek Thompson had purchased the vehicle in good faith and had no obligation to return it based on family disputes he knew nothing about. Marcus's demeanor shifted as he realized his manipulation tactics weren't working as effectively as usual. "You're talking about sending your own parents to prison over a car. That's the kind of person your European education has turned you into, someone who values possessions more than family." His attempt to guilt me into dropping legal action revealed the sophisticated emotional manipulation he had been using on Linda and Robert for years. By framing accountability as betrayal and consequences as cruelty, Marcus had trained them to prioritize his immediate comfort over long-term family stability and trust. "I'm talking about holding people accountable for criminal behavior," I replied firmly. "I'm talking about protecting myself from further financial fraud. I'm talking about stopping a pattern of deception that has been damaging our family relationships for years." Linda began crying, overwhelmed by the realization that their attempt to help Marcus had created a situation where I might indeed pursue criminal charges against them. Robert reached across the table in a gesture of reconciliation, but I pulled my hands back, unwilling to accept comfort from people who had betrayed my trust so completely. The dinner ended with no resolution and deeper divisions than when we had started. Marcus stormed out after realizing his guilt tactics had failed, while my parents sat in stunned silence as they confronted the possibility of criminal prosecution and permanent damage to our family relationships. As I drove home in the borrowed sedan, I realized that the conversation had revealed something crucial. My parents weren't criminal masterminds, but rather well-intentioned people who had been systematically manipulated by someone who understood their weaknesses and fears. Marcus had exploited their parental love and protective instincts to commit fraud while positioning himself as the victim deserving of rescue. That night, I called Patricia to report the new information and request that she hire the private investigator immediately. Something about Marcus's story didn't ring true, and I suspected that a deeper investigation would reveal additional deceptions that might change everything about how I understood the situation. The truth about Marcus's gambling debts and the alleged threats against him would prove to be even more shocking than the financial fraud itself. Patricia recommended Samuel Wright, a retired police detective who specialized in financial fraud investigations. His office occupied a small suite above a downtown coffee shop, decorated with commendations from his 30-year career in law enforcement and testimonials from grateful clients who had recovered stolen assets. Samuel listened carefully as I explained the situation, taking detailed notes about dates, amounts, and the various claims Marcus had made about owing money to dangerous criminals. His experienced eye immediately identified several inconsistencies that suggested a more complex deception than simple gambling debt. Young man, in my experience investigating family fraud cases, the initial story rarely tells the whole truth. Samuel explained, pulling out a digital recorder and notepad. We need to verify every claim Marcus made about these alleged threats and determine whether the gambling debts actually exist in the form your parents described. The investigation began with phone records and text message analysis. Samuel had contacts at telecommunications companies who could provide detailed logs of Marcus's communications during the crucial period when he claimed to be receiving death threats. Within 48 hours, Samuel called me with preliminary findings that shattered everything my parents believed about Marcus's crisis. "Johnny, I need you to sit down for this," Samuel said when I arrived at his office the next morning. "Marcus never received threatening communications from dangerous criminals. In fact, the threatening text messages he showed your parents came from burner phones that he purchased himself from 3 different convenience stores across town." Samuel spread out printed phone records, store surveillance photos, and credit card receipts that documented Marcus's elaborate deception. He had bought prepaid phones, sent threatening messages to his own number, and then immediately deleted the evidence from the sender phones while preserving the received messages to show my parents. He even went so far as to stage phone calls where your parents could overhear conversations with alleged criminals. Samuel continued showing me audio recordings he had obtained through legal channels. The voices on those calls belonged to friends of his who were helping create a fictional crisis designed to extract money from your family. The sophistication of Marcus's manipulation far exceeded anything I had imagined. He had spent weeks planning this fraud, researching my exchange program timeline to identify when I would be unavailable to interfere, and creating a fake emergency scenario specifically designed to trigger my parents' protective instincts. Samuel's investigation revealed the true nature of Marcus's financial problems. He owed $17,000 in unpaid child support to his ex-wife Catherine, who had been pursuing legal action that could result in jail time for contempt of court. The gambling story was completely fabricated to hide the real reason he needed immediate cash. Marcus has been using different sob stories to extract money from various family members for years. Samuel explained, showing me a timeline of his financial manipulations. Your grandmother Dorothy gave him $6,000 worth of your late grandfather's watch collection last year, believing it would help him pay for job training programs that never existed. The pattern of deception extended back 5 years with Marcus systematically targeting family members during times when they were emotionally vulnerable or geographically separated. He had extracted money from elderly relatives by claiming medical emergencies borrowed from cousins, by fabricating job opportunities that required upfront investment, and convinced various family members to co-sign loans that he never intended to repay. Samuel had also investigated Derek Thompson, the innocent purchaser of my Mustang, and discovered another crucial element of Marcus's scheme. Derek revealed that Marcus had initially approached him directly, claiming to be selling the car on behalf of his deployed military brother, who needed quick cash for a family emergency. Marcus tried to sell your car for $18,000. Samuel reported, showing me screenshots of Marcus's original Facebook Marketplace listing. When Derek expressed interest, Marcus planned to pocket the $4,000 difference between what your parents received and what Derek was willing to pay. The revelation that Marcus had attempted to steal an additional $4,000 while my parents believed they were helping him highlighted the depth of his manipulation. He wasn't just exploiting their compassion, but actively planning to steal from them even as they committed crimes on his behalf. Derek had saved all his communications with Marcus, including text messages that proved Marcus knew the car sale was fraudulent. In one message, Marcus wrote, "My brother doesn't know I'm selling this, so we need to keep this transaction quiet until he gets back from deployment." Another message instructed Derek to make sure the title paperwork looks official and to not worry about any signature issues. The investigation also uncovered Marcus's real activities during the period when he claimed to be in mortal danger from gambling creditors. Credit card receipts and surveillance footage showed him spending the weekend at Atlantic City casinos, using my car money to gamble rather than pay any debts. He had documented his trip on social media platforms. My parents didn't monitor posting photos of expensive meals and casino games, while they believed he was hiding from dangerous criminals. Samuel's final discovery proved the most damaging to Marcus's credibility. He had been telling different family members that I had approved the car sale, and even suggested it during a phone call that never happened. Grandmother Dorothy revealed that Marcus had borrowed money from her 6 months earlier, claiming I had personally requested help paying for additional education expenses in Germany. Your grandmother had been saving that money as your graduation gift. Samuel explained, his voice heavy with sympathy. Marcus convinced her that you needed immediate help with German university fees and that you were too embarrassed to ask directly. As I absorbed the full scope of Marcus's deception, I felt a mixture of rage and relief. Rage at the sophisticated manipulation that had turned my parents into unwitting criminals. Relief that they weren't the calculating fraudsters I had feared, but rather victims of someone who had studied their weaknesses and exploited them systematically. The evidence Samuel had gathered would prove crucial in the legal proceedings that followed. But it also revealed something more important: my parents needed help understanding how they had been manipulated, so they could protect themselves from future exploitation. I drove to Derek Thompson's apartment complex with a mixture of anxiety and hope, unsure how he would react to learning that his purchase had been fraudulent. His address led me to a modest suburban neighborhood where working families raised children in small but well-maintained homes, with carefully tended gardens and American flags on front porches. Derek answered his door wearing grease-stained coveralls, having just returned from his job at Anderson's Auto Repair. He was a stocky man in his early 30s, with calloused hands and a direct manner of speaking that immediately put me at ease. When I explained who I was and why I had come, his response surprised me completely. "I've been waiting for this conversation," Derek said, inviting me into his living room, where automotive magazines covered the coffee table. That whole transaction felt wrong from the beginning. Your cousin's story didn't match the car's maintenance records, and the pressure to complete the sale immediately raised every red flag I've learned to recognize in 20 years of buying and selling vehicles. Derek explained that his experience as a mechanic had taught him to identify inconsistencies in vehicle histories. The Mustang's service record showed regular maintenance at locations near my home. Addressed not the various military bases where Marcus claimed his brother had been stationed. The car's modification history also didn't match someone who was supposedly deployed overseas for extended periods. I never actually completed the title transfer. Derek revealed pulling out a folder of paperwork from the Department of Motor Vehicles. When I tried to register the car, the DMV rejected the application due to signature irregularities on the title. They said it needed additional verification before they could process the transfer. This information proved crucial for my legal case. The car remained legally registered in my name, meaning Derek had been unknowingly driving an unregistered vehicle while believing he owned it legitimately. Instead of being angry about the situation, Derek expressed relief at finally understanding why the paperwork had been rejected. I've been documenting everything because I suspected something was wrong. Derek continued showing me a comprehensive file of photographs, text messages, and receipts. I photographed every communication with your cousin, saved all the text messages, and kept detailed records of every dollar I spent on maintenance and improvements. Derek's meticulous documentation provided perfect evidence for the legal case Patricia was building. His text message screenshots proved Marcus's knowledge of the fraudulent nature of the sale, while his maintenance records established my rightful ownership of the vehicle. "I want to help you get your car back," Derek said firmly. "This isn't about the money I invested in new tires and a sound system. This is about doing what's right and stopping someone who obviously makes a habit of stealing from people who trust him." Derek's willingness to cooperate and testify against Marcus exceeded anything I had hoped for when planning this conversation. He understood that being an innocent victim of fraud didn't absolve him of responsibility to help correct the injustice, and his mechanical expertise would provide valuable testimony about the car's true history and condition. Patricia was thrilled when I reported Derek's cooperation and the documentation he had preserved. She immediately scheduled a meeting to interview him formally and gather his evidence for the criminal case she was preparing to file with the prosecutor's office. "Derek's testimony will be crucial because it demonstrates Marcus's intent to deceive and his knowledge that the sale was fraudulent," Patricia explained. "The text messages he saved prove that Marcus knew he was selling stolen property, which elevates this from simple fraud to multiple felony charges." The legal strategy began taking shape as Patricia outlined the charges Marcus would face. Fraud for the false gambling debt story forgery. For my signature on the title conspiracy. For involving my parents in criminal activity. And theft. For stealing both my car and the money my grandmother had given him under false pretenses. Meanwhile, my parents were beginning to understand the extent of Marcus's manipulation. Robert discovered receipts in Marcus's jacket that proved he had spent their car money on a gambling trip to Atlantic City, rather than paying any debts. Linda found evidence that Marcus had been telling other family members I had approved the car sale, and even suggested it during a fictional phone call. The family dynamic shifted dramatically when grandmother Dorothy called a family meeting at her house. She had remained quiet about her suspicions of Marcus for months, but Samuel's investigation had given her the courage to speak up about her own experiences with his manipulation. "Marcus came to me 6 months ago with a story about Johnny needing help with German university expenses." Dorothy revealed, her voice shaking with anger and embarrassment. "He said Johnny was too proud to ask for help directly, but had mentioned financial difficulties during a phone conversation that I now realize never happened." Dorothy had given Marcus the money she had been saving as my graduation gift, believing she was helping me succeed in my studies abroad. The revelation that Marcus had stolen my grandmother's gift while I was working hard to make my family proud added another layer of emotional devastation to his crimes. "I kept quiet because I was afraid of creating family conflict," Dorothy continued. "But I've been documenting his lies and gathering evidence because something about his story never felt right. When Samuel contacted me about his investigation, I finally felt safe enough to tell the truth about what Marcus had done. Dorothy's evidence included photographs of the watches Marcus had claimed to need for job training expenses, recordings of suspicious phone calls where he tried to extract additional money, and detailed notes about inconsistencies in his various stories to different family members. The family meeting concluded with everyone agreeing to cooperate fully with the legal prosecution of Marcus and to establish new boundaries that would prevent future manipulation. Linda and Robert committed to making complete financial restitution to me and Dorothy while also enrolling in counseling to understand how they had been exploited. As we prepared for Marcus's arrest and prosecution, I felt a sense of justice beginning to emerge from the chaos of betrayal and deception. The truth was finally coming to light, and the people who had been manipulated were finding the courage to hold Marcus accountable for his actions. The prosecutor assigned to Marcus's case was District Attorney Michael Rodriguez, a seasoned professional who specialized in white-collar crime and family fraud cases. His office took the matter seriously because it represented a clear pattern of manipulation that had affected multiple victims across several years. Cases like this are more common than people realize, DA Rodriguez explained during our initial meeting. Family members often hesitate to prosecute relatives, which allows sophisticated manipulators to continue their schemes indefinitely. Your willingness to pursue justice will protect other potential victims. Rodriguez filed multiple felony charges against Marcus Fraud for the fabricated gambling debt story forgery, for my signature on the car title conspiracy, for involving my parents in criminal activity theft, for stealing my grandmother's money under false pretenses and contempt of court, for avoiding child support payments to Catherine. Marcus's arrest took place at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport as he attempted to flee to Mexico using money he had stolen from Dorothy. Airport security detained him when Catherine alerted authorities that he was trying to leave the country while owing $17,000 in unpaid child support. Catherine proved to be a crucial witness for the prosecution. She had been tracking Marcus's activities for months through court-mandated monitoring software and immediately recognized his latest con when the criminal charges became public record through court filings. Marcus has been systematically stealing from family members for years. Catherine testified during the preliminary hearing. He creates fake emergencies, exploits people's emotions, and disappears when the truth starts coming out. He's done this to my family, his extended family, and even strangers he's met through social media. Catherine's testimony revealed that Marcus had used similar tactics during their marriage, stealing money from her savings account to pay gambling debts while claiming the withdrawals were for legitimate emergencies. She had documentation of his fraud patterns dating back 7 years, providing prosecutors with evidence of his long-term criminal behavior. The judge set Marcus's bail at $50,000, which he could not afford, due to having spent all his stolen money on gambling trips and luxury purchases. He remained in county jail while awaiting trial, finally facing real consequences for his actions, without family members rushing to rescue him. During this period, my parents underwent a profound transformation in their understanding of family relationships and financial boundaries. They enrolled in family therapy with Dr. Jennifer Hayes, who specialized in helping families recover from manipulation and abuse. Linda and Robert were classic victims of emotional manipulation. Dr. Hayes explained during one of our joint sessions. Marcus exploited their parental instincts and fear of family conflict to override their better judgment about financial decisions. The therapy sessions helped my parents understand how Marcus had systematically conditioned them to respond to his crises with immediate financial assistance rather than thoughtful evaluation of his claims. He had trained them to prioritize his emotional comfort over their own financial security and family relationships. Robert's breakthrough came when he admitted that he knew the signature forgery was wrong, but felt trapped by the artificial urgency Marcus had created. "I kept thinking we could fix the paperwork later after Marcus was safe," Robert explained. I didn't realize that there was no real danger and no legitimate emergency requiring immediate action. Linda's moment of clarity emerged when she acknowledged that she had avoided calling me in Germany because she feared I would refuse to help Marcus. I knew you would ask difficult questions about his gambling and demand accountability for his debts, Linda admitted. I avoided calling because I didn't want to hear reasonable objections to what we were planning to do. Their therapy progress accelerated when they began working extra jobs to make complete restitution for all the money Marcus had stolen from family members. Linda took evening cleaning shifts at local offices, while Robert began weekend landscaping work despite his arthritis pain. We're not doing this because the court ordered it, Linda explained. We're doing this because we need to prove to ourselves and our family that we can take responsibility for our choices and rebuild the trust we damaged. The hard physical work proved therapeutic for my parents, helping them process their guilt while taking concrete steps toward redemption. Dr. Hayes explained that their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort to make restitution demonstrated genuine remorse and commitment to changing their behavior patterns. Grandmother Dorothy also began healing during this period. She joined a support group for elder financial abuse victims and started volunteering with organizations that help families recognize manipulation tactics. Her courage in speaking up about Marcus's deception had been instrumental in building the legal case against him. I felt ashamed for so long about being fooled by Marcus. Dorothy shared during one family session. But Dr. Hayes helped me understand that smart, caring people are often the preferred targets of sophisticated manipulators because they have resources worth stealing and hearts worth exploiting. Derek Thompson continued to be an invaluable ally throughout the legal process. He testified at every hearing, providing clear evidence of Marcus's knowledge that the car sale was fraudulent. His professional demeanor and obvious integrity made him a compelling witness for the prosecution. Derek could have complicated this case by claiming innocent purchaser rights, Patricia noted. Instead, he chose to do the right thing and help us pursue justice. That kind of integrity is rare in situations involving significant financial loss. As Marcus's trial date approached, the weight of evidence against him became overwhelming. Patricia advised that he would likely accept a plea bargain rather than face the certainty of conviction and maximum sentencing that would result from going to trial. The legal victory was important, but the family healing that accompanied it proved even more significant for our long-term relationships and future ability to trust each other. 3 months after his arrest, Marcus accepted a plea bargain that sentenced him to 4 years in state prison, with mandatory restitution to all victims. The plea agreement also included supervised probation following his release and court-ordered counseling for gambling addiction and manipulative behavior patterns. Catherine gained full custody of their children and garnishment rights to any future income Marcus might earn after his release. She had remarried a man who provided stability for the children and created a home environment free from Marcus's financial manipulation and emotional chaos. The children are finally learning what normal family relationships look like, Catherine explained when she called to thank me for pursuing the prosecution. They had been conditioned to expect constant crisis and drama. Now they're experiencing consistency and honesty for the first time in their lives. Derek officially transferred the Mustang back to me during a ceremony at the courthouse, having completed all necessary paperwork to clear the title discrepancies. He refused any compensation for the $800 he had invested in new tires and a premium sound system, considering them his contribution to justice and friendship. That car represents more than transportation to you, Derek said as he handed me the keys. It represents your hard work, your independence, and your right to make your own decisions about your property. I'm honored to be part of getting it back where it belongs. Derek and I had developed a genuine friendship during the legal process, bonded by shared interests in automotive restoration and mutual respect for honest communication. We began planning future car projects together, with Derek teaching me advanced mechanical skills while I shared my engineering knowledge about performance modifications. The most shocking discovery during this period came when I learned that my parents had been secretly working multiple part-time jobs to repay every dollar Marcus had stolen from family members. They had been using this money to settle the unauthorized credit card debt, reimburse grandmother Dorothy, and create a restitution fund for me that exceeded the value of my stolen car. "We started working extra jobs the day after you confronted us," Robert explained. "We realized we couldn't just feel sorry for being manipulated. We had to take action to fix the damage we had caused by believing Marcus's lies." Linda had been cleaning office buildings 3 evenings per week, while Robert had been doing weekend landscaping work for former students and community members. Their financial sacrifice demonstrated genuine remorse and commitment to rebuilding trust through actions rather than words. "The physical work has been good for us mentally," Linda admitted. "Every hour we spend working to pay back the money feels like progress toward earning forgiveness and restoring our family relationships." Dr. Hayes explained that their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for family restoration represented a fundamental shift from enabling Marcus's manipulation to taking personal responsibility for their choices. The hard work had been therapeutic, helping them process guilt while making concrete progress toward redemption. Grandmother Dorothy revealed during this period that she had suspected Marcus's manipulation much earlier than she had initially admitted. She had been quietly documenting his lies and gathering evidence for months, waiting for the right moment to expose his deception when she felt emotionally strong enough to handle the family conflict. "I kept detailed records of every story he told me, every request for money, and every inconsistency in his explanations," Dorothy explained. "I was building a case against him in my own mind, but I needed courage to speak up when it really mattered." Dorothy's courage to finally confront Marcus at the crucial family meeting had proved instrumental in stopping his scheme and protecting other potential victims. Her documentation provided prosecutors with evidence of his long-term fraud patterns that strengthened the criminal case significantly. The family established new communication policies designed to prevent future manipulation and ensure transparent decision-making about matters affecting multiple family members. We created a family financial transparency agreement requiring full disclosure and genuine consent from affected parties before any major financial decisions. We learned that family loyalty means protecting each other from harm, not enabling destructive behavior. Robert reflected during one of our final therapy sessions. "Real love sometimes requires saying no to immediate requests in order to preserve long-term well-being and trust." My own transformation during this period involved developing skills in conflict resolution, legal advocacy, and family leadership that my engineering education had never addressed. I learned to distinguish between healthy support and destructive enabling, between family loyalty and family manipulation. The experience studying abroad had taught me about different cultural approaches to family responsibility, helping me understand that genuine care sometimes requires difficult conversations and firm boundaries, rather than automatic financial assistance. Most importantly, I learned that trust can be rebuilt after betrayal, but only through consistent demonstration of changed behavior over extended periods. My parents had earned my forgiveness through their willingness to sacrifice personal comfort, to make restitution, and their commitment to honest communication going forward. As this chapter of our family crisis concluded, I felt grateful for the painful education it had provided about adult relationships, financial responsibility, and the difference between genuine love and destructive codependency. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, I stood in the garage where this entire ordeal had begun. But now the space looked completely different. My restored Mustang occupied its rightful place, but it no longer represented just my teenage determination and sacrifice. It had become a symbol of justice, transformation, and the power of truth to heal damaged relationships. Derek and I had spent countless hours working together to restore the car to pristine condition, replacing every component that Marcus's deception had tainted. The process had been therapeutic for both of us, combining my engineering precision with Derek's mechanical expertise to create something better than either of us could have achieved alone. Working on cars teaches you about life. Derek reflected as we admired our completed project. You can't hide problems under a coat of paint. You have to address issues at their source, rebuild damaged parts properly, and test everything thoroughly before you trust it to perform reliably. Our automotive restoration business had grown naturally from our collaboration on the Mustang. We now employed two formerly incarcerated individuals who were rebuilding their lives, reflecting my belief in second chances when paired with genuine accountability and honest work. Marcus's imprisonment had given him time to confront his addiction and manipulation patterns through mandatory counseling programs. While our family maintained strict boundaries with him, we had not abandoned hope for his eventual rehabilitation. The crucial difference was that any future relationship would require consistent demonstration of changed behavior, rather than empty promises or emotional manipulation. Marcus sends letters occasionally. Linda shared during one of our monthly family dinners. He's working in the prison auto shop and participating in financial responsibility classes. We respond supportively, but maintain clear boundaries about future financial assistance. Linda and Robert had completed their restitution payments ahead of schedule and enrolled in financial literacy courses to better understand boundaries and decision-making processes. Their relationship with me had grown stronger through this crisis, built on a foundation of honest communication and mutual respect, rather than assumed obligations. We learned that protecting family members sometimes requires saying no to their immediate requests. Robert explained, "True family support means helping each other grow stronger and more independent, not covering up mistakes or enabling destructive patterns." Their transformation extended beyond our immediate family. They now volunteer with organizations that help families recognize manipulation tactics and establish healthy financial boundaries. Their experience has helped other parents understand the difference between genuine emergencies and manufactured crises designed to extract money. Grandmother Dorothy had become an advocate for elder financial abuse awareness, sharing her story at community centers and senior living facilities to help others recognize manipulation tactics. Her courage in speaking up during our family crisis had protected not just our family, but potentially dozens of other elderly people who might have become Marcus's targets. I learned that shame about being deceived actually helps the manipulators succeed. Dorothy explained during one of her awareness presentations. When victims stay quiet to avoid embarrassment, the criminals continue finding new people to exploit. Catherine had created a stable home for her children, finally free from Marcus's financial manipulation and emotional chaos. She sent updates occasionally, sharing photos of school events and family celebrations that showed her children thriving in an environment of honesty and consistency. My own journey had led to a position with a renewable energy company, where I apply my engineering skills to environmental solutions, while maintaining the automotive restoration business as a creative outlet. The experience of navigating family fraud had taught me valuable lessons about leadership, conflict resolution, and ethical decision-making that enhanced my professional effectiveness. The support group I started for family fraud victims has grown to include monthly meetings where people share experiences and strategies for recovery. Patricia Sullivan volunteers as our legal advisor, helping victims understand their rights and options for pursuing justice. Family manipulation often succeeds because it exploits natural love and loyalty. I explained during support group sessions. Genuine love requires honesty, respect, and personal responsibility. It means helping each other face consequences and learn from mistakes rather than simply providing endless rescue. The most profound life lesson from this experience emerged through my work with other fraud victims. I learned that family relationships must be built on truth and mutual respect, rather than fear of conflict or automatic financial obligation. Real family support means encouraging each other to grow stronger and more independent, not covering up problems or enabling destructive behavior. Trust once broken can be rebuilt through consistent actions over time, but it requires genuine accountability from those who caused the damage. My parents had earned forgiveness by sacrificing personal comfort to make restitution and by committing to transparent communication going forward. The car that once represented loss and betrayal now embodies resilience, justice, and the power of truth to transform relationships and communities. Every time I drive my restored Mustang, I remember that difficult problems require systematic solutions, that genuine love sometimes demands difficult conversations, and that accountability is the foundation of healthy relationships. As I pulled into the parking lot of my new job at Great Lakes Renewable Energy, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The morning sun reflected off the Mustang's perfectly restored paint, and I felt grateful for every difficult lesson that had taught me the difference between family loyalty and family enabling. The engineering degree I had earned in Germany gave me technical skills for my career, but the family crisis I had navigated at home had taught me life skills that would serve me forever. I had learned to distinguish between genuine emergencies and manufactured drama, between healthy support and destructive rescue, between family love and family manipulation. Most importantly, I had learned that justice and healing are possible when people have the courage to tell the truth, face consequences, and commit to genuine change. The painful experience of being betrayed by people I trusted had ultimately strengthened our family relationships by forcing us to build them on more honest foundations. What experiences have taught you the most important lessons about family loyalty versus enabling behavior? Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and demanding accountability? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. I hope sharing my story has helped you think about your own family relationships and the importance of maintaining healthy boundaries. Please like this video. If it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming life's challenges, and share this with anyone who might benefit from understanding the difference between genuine love and destructive rescue. Remember, real family support means helping each other become stronger and more independent, not solving problems that people need to learn to handle themselves. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow someone to face the consequences of their choices and learn from their mistakes. I wish you wisdom in navigating your own family relationships and the courage to stand up for truth and accountability when it matters most.